And our guest speaker for tonight is Isabella Hung.
Hello. So I'm excited to be back here. I'm Isabella. So I have a little presentation. I will share my screen to kind of discuss where I've been. I graduated in August 2020 with my master's social work. Currently working for United Way of the Greater Chippewa Valley in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So I will kind of share my presentation too. So I'm one of the community impact directors for United Way of the Greater Chippewa Valley. So this is why I have my presentation named like so. About me, I got my Bachelor's of Science in Kinesiology at the University of Houston in 2014, just because I was like, I'm going to become a physical therapist. And I actually went to physical therapy school and thought, you know what, this isn't for me. I really like people more than I like the human body and muscles and bones. So I was like, let me just explore kind of the social services realm. And I did an AmeriCorps and loved it. And I said I could do this for the rest of my life. So I went into UTA with thinking like I want to make an impact in the community at the organizational level. So which is why I ended up pursuing the community and administrative practice, or the macro concentration at UTA. And as I mentioned, I am currently the Community Impact Director for the Health and Education Initiatives at United Way of the Greater Chippewa Valley. So there's some symbolism for that. While I was at UTA, I was a social work council officer. I was also a graduate student leader, part of Phi Alpha Honor Society, and completed my field placements at City Square Track and UTA School of Social Work. So a lot of my questions I get is, what is United Way and how does it impact the community? So United Way is a nonprofit organization that supports nonprofit agencies. So a lot of kind of like your food pantries and domestic violence, and also your shelters as well. United Ways support those communities by kind of funneling community donations and corporate donations and funneling it back to support the community. So it is also a global organization as well that is all over the world, from I think from like Hong Kong to Canada, also countries in Europe. It's pretty much around the world, and it's kind of insane to see its impact. I didn't really realize that they had this large of a presence until I joined the organization. Their primary focus areas are education, income, and health. Education, for example, is kind of focusing on early childhood literacy, which is what my United Way does. Income is kind of providing financial education, so people don't get into debt and they're able to not get evicted from where they're living. And then health is mental health, health equity, and all of that. So at my United Way, our basic needs are, we support organizations that provide overnight shelter, food pantries as well, education, early childhood literacy for kids ages 0 through 5 to make sure that they're ready to enter school. Financial stability or income, we're ensuring that people have the education and the support that they need to succeed and be able to live without damaging their credit, because credit can really hurt you down the line. And health, we're focusing on mental health for all age ranges, from school-based mental health to activities that support mental health. So where is Eau Claire, Wisconsin? So I provided a map of our coverage area. So we do provide coverage for both Eau Claire County and Chippewa County. And I provided a kind of rectangle of how big the coverage is and where the city of Eau Claire is relative to major cities such as Minneapolis. I live about an hour and a half from Minneapolis. And the $1 million question I usually get from Wisconsinites is, why did I come to Wisconsin? And I said, I'm young, I'm not married, don't have any kids. So the opportunity just presented itself and I took it. And I wanted kind of a break from metroplexes, since I've kind of lived them throughout my entire life. So what are my responsibilities and duties at United Way? Kind of a pretty big list of what I do. I oversee the health and education initiatives. So we plan, implement, fund, and monitor and report on our grant process and rewards. Our 2022 to 2025 grant applications are about to be released on Monday. So I've just been updating the documentation related to that, and worked with our advisory councils to make sure that our application reflected our overall goals. So that's where I facilitate groups of volunteers. And we also have our upcoming annual progress reports where our recipients of our grants will update us on how they're meeting their outcomes and if there's any additional support United Way can do to ensure that they do meet their outcomes. And we also meet with stakeholders such as the board of directors and our program partners. Our next program partner meeting is occurring on May 27th, and we currently support about 23 organizations and 29 programs total. So it's kind of a smaller group. We're not on the same scale of United Ways as, say, Greater Dallas or Tarrant County, but we're kind of in the middle of our size and organization. We also collaborate with health and education related community coalitions. So these are just a list of some of the coalition meetings I do attend, such as Mental Health Action Team, Early Literacy, and Health Equity. I've also participated in 3 advocacy days, so I've met with state legislators to kind of advocate on the needs of our community, such as expanding Medicare and investing more funding into increasing the wages of childcare providers, because where I live, we live in childcare deserts where there's not enough licensed facilities to provide the care that they need. I live in a really rural area, so some families are having to drive 30 minutes to be able to get to drop their child off at a reputable location. And then I did an NASW Wisconsin Advocacy Day where we discussed about banning conversion therapy, yes. So that was one of the topics. That was also a fun day. Assisting the United Way staff with a ton of other events, such as our golf tournament, which is our major fundraising event, and then conducting outreach and doing training in both Chippewa and Eau Claire counties. And I'm also leading the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at my organization. Are there any questions?
How do you tend to find yourself practicing self-care these days?
So I have a cat. My cat is always fun. She's part of my self-care. Sometimes I go on walks, brief walks during the middle of the workday to take a break. I also go on hikes on the weekend as well because I'm so close to nature that it's just very easy to get lost and away from the noise. And I think living far away from a major city does help my self-care a bit.
Do you have an idea as far as the time frame on how long you think you may want to stay in your current position and whether or not there are other projects or positions you want to move on to eventually?
Great question. I have thought about it, yes. So currently my organization, there's only about 6 of us. We're currently looking for our kind of resource development, which is the fundraising person. So really there's no way for me to move up in my current role unless I move up to my kind of supervisor's role, because she's kind of the lead person in the community impact sector. But I do see myself staying in this position for about 5 years before maybe moving on to a larger United Way in a major metroplex.
How was the job hunt to find this position? Like, how did you end up finding it?
So my job hunt process, I started in July of 2020 because I kind of knew in advance the job market was like. I knew that the interview process and application process would take over a month. I got my job offer, I think, in October, and then I moved in November because I said I'm moving like 1,600 miles to a different state. Hunt process was very challenging. I submitted over 150 applications in total, received about, I think, 10 interviews. I think only organizations or two or three, about three organizations that I received a secondary interview. But I went through multiple edits of my resume and cover letter. But the more I did the edits and the more on my resume and cover letter, the more I figured out what kind of positions and which areas I wanted to go into. So for me, I went to pursue United Way because it was kind of the standout organization for macro practice. So I did apply for some positions that maybe required 1 or 2 years of experience with a bachelor's degree. So I said, why not? Let me just apply with my master's and see where it gets me. And I also applied to food pantries because food pantries and hunger were always one of my passions. Don't just say yes to that job, that first job that you get, because I did receive, 2 offers for positions, but I didn't choose the other position because it was lower paying. The salary that they were paying me was not really affordable for that area.
Isabella, do you think there was anything in particular you did during your time as a student that maybe kind of caught the attention of the folks who eventually hired you? And do you recommend, as far as any particular activities beyond just graduating with an MSW degree?
What helped me was definitely having a good relationship with my mentors. My mentors were mainly my field supervisors, my field education supervisors. I kept in great contact with them. I also kept in good contact with my supervisors with the organization I did AmeriCorps with. Having that relationship really helps them vouch for you, especially when you do go job hunting. I also reached out to one of my mentors to help edit my resume. And I think also having relationships with my peers as well, because of my classmates who were going through the same things that I struggled with, especially with finding a job and getting licensed.
Isabella, do you happen to remember if you used any particular networking aids such as LinkedIn or anything else to help you out?
I used it all. I engaged with a lot of networks as much as I could, especially related to the area of focus I wanted to go into, such as macro social work. I joined the network for social work management. I joined all of these networks to try and get involved because I was pretty much trying every avenue I could to kind of gain employment. But like a lot of the reasons why I didn't get a secondary interview was because I didn't live in the area. When I graduated, I had the sole intent of going out of state because I thought, I'm young, I'm not married, don't have kids, let me just see what else is out there. I think I wasn't chosen because I wasn't really a good fit for the culture. Because the culture of a work environment play a large role, I think, into how employers will hire people. Because that's kind of the sense that I got as well. Because you may be the perfect fit on paper, but are you going to be a good fit for the culture and the environment in that particular kind of niche of people?
Is there an example of a situation that you might be comfortable kind of providing a little more detail on, as far as maybe where someone otherwise directly or implicitly kind of stated that due to culture, they didn't think you would be a good fit?
I've never been explicitly told the comments, but I think the more research I did on why people get rejected, because I did go down that alley because I constantly kept getting rejected. And then it wasn't until that I got hired that I finally understood what they meant by not fitting in with the specific culture. Because work culture is really a thing. My boss said that he wouldn't have hired me if I didn't fit in with my current coworkers.
What do you think your next steps are as far as what you'd like to do in the future further on?
I actually really haven't thought that much in the next 5 or 10 years, just because I'm trying to absorb as much as I can right now in my current position. My thoughts are I don't want to leave a position unless I got the most out of it, which is why I say I'll probably be here for the next 5 years, mastering this grant process.